He is busted. The only thing I want to talk about today about Donald Trump is the fact that the mainstream media is at last reporting out a story that we began to break here last week, 7 days ago. Bottom line is, there now is additional human sources, not just confirming what we were reporting out, that Roger Solenberger, the reporter, had discovered through his own sleuthing, reporting out that Donald Trump and his Justice Department are covering up and are hiding from the public many files, including FBI notes and interviews with a woman who has credibly accused Donald Trump of sexually assaulting her and physically abusing her, punching her in the face when she was between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. Let's be clear. The DOJ has hidden from us evidence that Donald Trump sexually assaulted and punched a child, and that this happened in the 1980s. Now, I want to be absolutely clear that Roger Solenberger was reporting this out a little over a week ago. We showed you this here on the show. And it's not every day that or any day that I usually show you a clip from a show here. But I just want to show you this from a week ago. And here we go. So I'm going to show you the beginning of this, and you will see what I am talking about. We have a bombshell of a show. I have been following this story that I'm going to share with you for a few days. Reporter Roger Solenberger has put two and two together, looking closely at some allegations in the Epstein files. And what I believe it shows is that there is absolutely credible allegations against Donald Trump in the Epstein files that he sexually assaulted a girl who was between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. Okay, so the deal is we dealt with that this week, and we have now more information. And so it's NPR, it's CNN, it's MSNBC reporting this. I'm going to share with you the key point that is new, and I'm going to have a clip from Nicole Wallace to share this with you. What is new from what Roger Solenberger reported and now is that last week we thought there was the possibility that there were two different people, possibility, highly unlikely, possibility that there were two different people who had, between the ages of 13 and 15, met Jeffrey Epstein, and that they both had been from South Carolina, and that as adults they were in Washington State, and that they both, in the summer of 2019, were supposed to be interviewed by the FBI. Now, Solenberger, as well as I, thought they were the same person, but it was not clear. Now we know they are the same person. And what that means is there is no question that a girl who was between the ages of 13 and 15, who was at a summer vacation home with her mother and had Jeff Epstein nearby. She said he hired her to be a babysitter, even though he didn't have children, got her drunk and high, sexually assaulted her, later got her trafficked into his circles in New York, and that she is the same girl who was a woman who, when she was between 13 and 15 years old, was introduced to Donald Trump by Jeff Epstein, and who said Donald Trump forced her head down into his lap, exposing his member. I don't want to say it right now, it's disgusting, and forced her mouth onto it. She bit him, and then he punched her in the head and kicked her out of wherever they were. So we know that this is one and the same person, and that this got reported in the summer of 2019 when Jeff Epstein was arrested. And the FBI, this is when Donald Trump was president, put out a call for victims of Epstein to a tip line. Not only did someone call this information into a tip line, but it was considered so serious that the FBI sent someone out to interview her in Washington state with her lawyer present. And in the files, what we have seen so far, included in these files, is a heavily redacted interview with her and her lawyer, typed up interview, not the original handwritten notes, the typed up interview of what they talked about. Again, huge chunks of things being blacked out. And in that interview, we see that she shows them that they said, "How do you know the person was Jeff Epstein?" And she said, because a friend of hers who knew about this story sent her a photograph. And it's the famous photograph of Epstein and Trump together in their suits, not the one where they're leering at the party at Mar-a-Lago. And she said, because my friend sent me this photo, but she said, "Can I cut out the other person who's in this photo?" And they asked her why. And her lawyer said something to the effect of, she did not want to implicate other powerful people and she feared retribution. Remember, 2019, Donald Trump was president of the United States. What we also saw in the files, if you remember, this is before this new revelation, is this young girl, the woman who was a young girl that we now know is the same person, that the allegation against Donald Trump was thought to be so serious that this last summer, 2025, when Pam Bondi was saying, in July, first she's saying, "We're not going to release any more files." And then there's pressure on her. Then there's Todd Blanche meeting Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. Around that entire time, we know that there is, and we have seen it, a slide presentation, a PowerPoint or some other slide deck presentation listing with Donald Trump first in this one slide in it, that about this allegation against him from someone between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. And we know from another thing that had been hidden, but Sullenberger saw it back up, there is a listing of the with kind of case numbers of the FBI listing all these people they were following who had Epstein allegations. There was a listing that there had been like 4 interviews conducted with this person with the same ID number. And several of them are missing. That's what we know. So again, we know all of this stuff. The big revelation yesterday that I heard when I was watching Lisa Rubin being interviewed by Nicole Wallace on MSNBC is they have confirmation from a credible source, a human source, that the person who had been interviewed in Washington and had implicated Epstein, but there were other things blacking out, didn't want to say anything about Trump, is the same person. Makes sense that they are, that accused Donald Trump of that sexual assault and violence against her when she was between 13 and 15, and that Epstein had introduced her. And the reason why this index I'm talking about that's listed in the files, it wasn't, I should be clear, I just said to you it was a list of FBI interviews, but what it was actually was a list of witnesses that the prosecution was not going to call against Ghislaine Maxwell when she was tried. And so apparently we know that not only does this list exist because we've seen it, but these interviews exist because they're documented. And probably Ghislaine Maxwell has copies of these. I don't know. But we sure know the FBI does, and they're not sharing them. So now, I don't know if you understand how important this is. Not enough people. This should be front page news. I don't care about the State of the Union address. I did not watch Donald Trump last night. I was only going to watch him if I had knowledge with certainty that he was going to be arrested for the sexual assault of a child on stage. And I knew that wasn't going to happen. No one said it was, so I didn't watch. I instead watched the People's State of the Union, which was held outside in front of the Capitol, which was fabulous. I don't know if you saw it. Katie Fang and Joy Reid were co-hosting that, and they had many members of Congress and the Senate who came up, some with Epstein victims, some with other people suffering from our economy, some people who were victims in other ways, immigrant families from Minnesota, and so on, right? That was a much better, much encouraging thing to watch. But getting back to, it should be front page news everywhere that the Department of Justice is hiding evidence that Donald Trump raped a child. This is child sexual abuse, sexual assault. The man who is in the presidency. We are having people all over the country and all over the world step down from their positions simply because they sent emails to Epstein and were around him and were friends with him and were in photos with him. And then some, of course, like the man formerly known as Prince Andrew, now Andrew, what is it, Mountbatten Windsor or whatever the heck his name is. Not only has he lost all of his titles, but he has also been arrested for not directly for the sexual assault of children, but for sharing secrets, government secrets. We've had numerous, we have the guy who was a former ambassador to the US from the UK has now been, I think, arrested as well. We are seeing the fallout, but the number one person who is still alive in the US, most greatly implicated by Jeff Epstein, is Donald Trump. Now, you might say, oh, isn't it Les Wexner? No. More so Donald Trump. I mean, Les Wexner was involved and he was the money guy, and God knows what blackmail Epstein had on him. But Donald Trump is at the center of this. And there is, as I said, a major cover-up of evidence that Donald Trump raped a 13 or girl who was between the ages of 13 and 15. Facts. We must not let up on this. Now, I'm going to share with you, just so you know, I am not wearing a tinfoil hat, and I'm greatly, I have to say, disappointed that this is not at the center of the news at this moment, and it should be, and we need to make it be. And I don't know how people who are just consumers of news can do this, but the best thing we can do is share these stories, share these links, talk about it. Maybe write letters to the editor of your local paper. If you are a victim or a survivor of a sexual assault, which so many of us are, speak from your own experience if you feel comfortable. Do not let up on this. This is, we know, not just illegal, disgusting, but also a source of blackmail over him, because there are people who know exactly what Trump has done. Now, let me share this with you. Here is the story yesterday from Nicole Wallace that I was talking about. The missing piece of the story is that there is no question now that Jeff Epstein introduced Donald Trump to someone who credibly accused him of raping her when she was between 13 and 15 years old. And the Department of Justice is hiding that information. Let me play this for you.
There is explosive, brand new reporting, new today, on missing Epstein files and shocking testimony from a witness that has made an accusation against none other than Donald Trump himself. It is reporting that suggests a cover-up inside the Trump Justice Department and could be a possible explanation to a question that has dogged Donald Trump throughout the entirety of his second term as president, the entirety really of the Epstein scandal. In the face of major public backlash, including from deep inside his own political coalition, why is Donald Trump working so hard to block the release of the Epstein files? Our colleagues Lisa Rubin and Michael Schnell confirm news first reported by independent journalists Roger Sollenberger and NPR that the Justice Department has withheld files that contain allegations that Donald Trump sexually abused a person who was a minor at the time. That is despite the fact that the Justice Department is now legally mandated to publicly release all of the Epstein files. NPR reports that more than 50 pages of notes and memos about the FBI's interviews with this accuser are missing. A source who has viewed the documents tells us this, quote, a woman interviewed by the FBI in July 2019 about her Epstein allegations is the same woman who alleged that Trump forced her to perform oral sex on him 35 years ago when she was 13 or 14 years old, and he subsequently hit her. That allegation appears in a 2025 PowerPoint presentation detailing each of the FBI's Epstein-related investigations and a spreadsheet of unconfirmed tips that were called into the Bureau's National Threat Operations Center. MS Now can report that the FBI interviewed her 4 times. A memo from only one of those 4 times, one of those 4 interviews, is publicly available. In a tweet, the Justice Department denies that anything has been deleted, adding this explanation, quote, all responsive documents have been produced unless a document falls within one of the following categories: duplicates, privileged, or part of an ongoing federal investigation, end quote. We have also reached out to the White House for comment and have yet to hear back. In a statement for NPR, however, the White House claimed that Trump has been, quote, totally exonerated on anything related to Epstein. Now, we do not know if this allegation made against Donald Trump about a 13 or 14-year-old victim is true, but we do know what the FBI thought. We know what they did, at least. We know they took it seriously enough to interview this person several times, and that the accusation came up again in 2025 while Donald Trump was president again and facing massive pressure to release the files, which of course leads us really to have more questions. As NPR reports, the accuser's name was being circulated by the FBI in late July and early August with the purpose of setting up an interview. That would be weeks after the release of the memo that kicked up the public firestorm around the case. That memo said, quote, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, end quote. 2 months later, Kash Patel said,
okay, so I think you get the idea here. Massive cover-up. He has not been exonerated. And so allow me now to share with you an interview from yesterday on CNN with Manu Raja and Jim Jordan. You know, Jim Jordan, who is on the committee charged with releasing this information, or getting the information from the Department of Justice. And let me share that one with you as well. Sorry, give me a moment. I want to get this without all the side stuff in here. Okay, here we go. Sorry that you have to see Jim Jordan so early in the morning, but here you go.
The speech tonight, a number of Democratic members are bringing in survivors, Jeffrey Epstein survivors, as their guests. Some of those survivors have asked President Trump for a meeting, to meet with them. Should the president meet with them?
I leave that to the White House.
But would it be a good idea in your view?
Everyone knows that the president didn't do anything wrong, because if he had, you don't think the Garland Justice Department and the Biden administration would have brought something up? I mean, everyone knows he didn't do anything wrong here. Our Justice Department is complying with the legislation we passed and with the courts and getting that information out there as the law requires and as the courts have required, making sure you protect people who should be protected, but getting the information to Congress as it said in the law we passed.
You speak of President Trump. Congressman Robert Garcia said today that the DOJ appears to have withheld FBI interviews with a survivor who accused President Trump of serious crimes. Are you aware of DOJ withholding?
I'm not.
Are you going to ask about it, or do you want to see this information?
But I'm confident that Attorney General Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Blanche, the Justice Department is complying with the law, complying with the courts, and getting that information to Congress as the statute requires.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace, one of your Republican colleagues, has been raising concerns, and as others have too, that of the lack of prosecutions that have happened in the aftermath of the release of these Epstein files. We've only seen really Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell being prosecuted, and this was what Mace said about this. She said, "We pushed to release millions of pages of documents, and the British are acting on them faster than Washington. It is time to start making arrests here at home." Of course, we've seen some fallout in the UK. Do you agree, though, that the Justice Department needs to begin to prosecute?
If people have done things wrong, then they will be prosecuted. In my understanding, in the UK.
Okay. Okay. Couple things. Doesn't answer the question. The question of should Donald Trump meet with the victims, he doesn't care about the victims. He is completely ignoring the fact that that was the question. And he just says, well, the White House will do what it's going to do. This idea that if there had been anything on Donald Trump, that the Garland Justice Department would have pursued it is also questionable, because these are millions of documents. And we know how little Garland cared about holding Donald Trump accountable. But on top of that, if these FBI files have been hidden, have they been hidden for a while? And finally, there are a lot of Democrats that are implicated, very wealthy businessmen. And why should anyone think that the Garland Justice Department wouldn't defer to them? I mean, the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was still ongoing. I don't want to let Garland off the hook. In fact, quite the opposite. The reality is to say, well, someone else would have found this, so it can't be true, doesn't answer the question, which we need to ask. Where are the missing files from someone who was considered credible enough that just a few months ago, her accusations were at the top of the list of concerns, right? That's a fact. And when are we going to take the next step? When will the lawyer? Well, here's another problem. You might say, when will the lawyer for this woman come forward? Well, the thing is, we also know that this woman apparently settled a case with the Epstein estate. And I don't know what the terms of the non-disclosure are. It's quite possible, because this case was settled, that she can't talk even about Donald Trump. I don't know the answer to that question. But let me tell you, there are people out there who are not subject to non-disclosure agreements. And that is the press, that is all of us, that is other people who can demand these files. If they're alleging that their privilege can't be privileged, attorney-client privilege, if they're alleging that these are subject to an ongoing investigation, of whom are they? They can't have it both ways. If they're saying Donald Trump has been exonerated and there is no investigation of him, then these files must be released. Now, we are in a situation where, again, credible evidence that Donald Trump, I call this rape when you force someone, he forced her to give him oral sex and then punched her when she resisted, because she bit him. She resisted. Evidence that this was forcible, and he hit her. Should be front page of the newspaper. This cover-up on its own should be grounds for impeachment. Where is the member of Congress? Where is that member of Congress who is going to step up and file articles of impeachment just on the cover-up of this allegation? Because God damn it, I just want to make this super clear to you guys. Don't tell me the votes aren't there in the Senate, because if there are votes in the House, to impeach him, which means a formal accusation, then we can go to a trial in the Senate, and this information would have to come out. That is the only way we can see justice. So this is now, as I'm talking out loud to you, I'm an external processor. I'm going to reach out to my member of Congress and Representative Tanader, and he has filed articles of impeachment before. I think I'm going to call his office today and see if he would be willing to, or someone else would be willing to step up and do this. It's time. There's no question in my mind this is a cover-up. There is obviously truth to the relationship that she had with Epstein, where he trafficked her when she was a child, because why else would there have been a settlement? Even if we don't know 100% sure, they just settled it to make it go away. We have 4 different interviews with the FBI and I'm going to show you I'm going to show you right now that chart that we looked at before, where she was on last summer on a slide presentation. It was that serious. They are hiding documents. This is time for an impeachment. Now, let me show you those files. So that what I'm talking about, in case you don't know. Remember, right? It was Roger Solenberger, and he. I just want to make sure I get this. This is. I think this is right. I'm going to show this to you. Robert Garcia testified before yesterday and said, this is part of the House Oversight Committee, said, quote unquote, and Roger Solenberger shared this on social, covering up direct evidence of a potential assault by the President of the United States is the most serious possible crime in this White House cover-up. Okay. And Solenberger's piece on this said he had first reported out about these allegations, made very clear. And I think the easiest way for me to share this with you is to, I think well, one second. I have the slideshow of accusing Trump. So you can see what I'm talking about. This was important to them. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna share this with you right now. This is what I'm talking about right here. This is from Solenberger's piece. This is what you're seeing here. This sort of grayish blue says prominent names, and under Trump, number 1 there, right? That what you can see in the white space above is this. He's typed it in here, but it's right on this slide presentation. Redacted stated Epstein introduced her to Trump, who subsequently forced her head down to his exposed penis, which she subsequently bit, the presentation says. That was in quotes. And then it also says, in response, Trump punched her in the head and kicked her out. The victim would have been approximately 13 to 15 years old when this occurred, right? This is Solenberger. This is what he shared with us. And I want to show you that I am sharing this. I'm now clicked through to the Department of Justice website. I've said I'm not a robot. I am 18 or older. And here is that slide presentation. And I am not going to, I'm curious what AI will say. This is funny. Key takeaways from this content. What are the key takeaways? It may take longer to process these scan files. Okay, I don't need you to process for me. I'm going to make this go away. Hide this bar. So this is Trump's listed here: Weinstein, Prince Andrew, Jess Staley, Alan Dershowitz, all these different people. But the key thing here, the key thing that we are talking about here is that this person who accused Donald Trump, again, was interviewed 4 times. And this is being hidden from us. Jeffrey Epstein is not gone. Donald Trump said when this was being over the summer, when they decided to hide the files, I don't understand it. Why would they be so interested? He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. Somehow, Donald Trump didn't think he would be in the files. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because he never uses email. Or maybe it is because that's how he always acts. He says, sure, I'll show you my tax returns. They're great. And then he doesn't. When push comes to shove, he says, there's nothing in there. I've been exonerated. This is how he's done everything his whole life. This must stop here. It is unacceptable that this is being hidden. It's unacceptable that Donald Trump has been credibly accused of raping a child and battering her. And I'm not going to shut up. Thank you guys for listening today. Sorry it was a hard show, but I think we need to keep our eye on what is happening in this country and how we must end this man's presidency. And remember that we need to focus, as we do these hard things, on our physical, relational, intellectual, spiritual, and mental health. That is the only way we will get through this. I will see you tomorrow. And of course, thank you to my amazing mods, Jason, Deb, and AJ.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub show.